Welcome, fight fans, to the 5th episode of the Hooks In MMA podcast. On tonight's episode, we're going to be breaking down UFC 251, the pay-per-view over the weekend on Fight Island. Then we're going to be sliding into our special interview with Cody Spartan Stamann. He's the 9th-ranked Bantamweight fighter who's fighting on tomorrow night's UFC on ESPN card versus Jimmy Rivera. And finally, as always, we're going to be sliding right into easy lines, how you can get ahead of the book, previewing a double event on tonight's episode, both tomorrow's Wednesday night's card as well as Saturday night's card. We have lots of great picks for you to get ahead of the book, and we're excited to share them with you. Kicking things off, let's start with the hot headline news.
Yeah, well, we'll be jumping into the recap really quick. We'll be starting off with the main event of the prelims of 251. We had Volkan Ozdemir taking on Prochazka. I still probably can't pronounce his name right, but I
Sounds
did get
good
the
to
bet.
me.
Yeah, but you know what? On easy lines, all that matters is the betting line, and we got that right. Yeah, it was a crazy knockout there. Very, very interesting striking. I don't know, Zone, what did you think?
Yeah, I was, I think, more jacked up for this fight than the entire main card, which is kind of crazy based on three, title shots in the main card. This fight, had the makeup of absolute, barn burner from start to finish. The crazy part is, from start to finish, we thought would be quite a bit less than going the 15 minutes, and we were absolutely right. Ozdemir, has been, fantastic. He won his last two. We talked about how many finishes Yuri had in previous promotions and some of the guys that he's beaten. Not to the caliber of Ozdemir, but boy, did he show it. He got hit in the face a few times and took a few nice shots, and he was putting his arms down and taunting Volkan. And, it must suck as a fighter when you have a ton of power and you've knocked out a ton of people, and a guy comes in and never fought in the UFC before, gets peppered by a bunch of shots to the face, and he just puts his hands down and mocks you and tells you to hit him even more. That hurts the ego, and I think that played a factor in the demise of Ozdemir, who ended up getting finished. And Yuri looked fantastic. We'll talk a little bit later about who he could match up against, but we're looking at a top 5 guy in that division.
Yeah. It's one thing to happen in Bantamweight to see that happen, but with these big guys throwing it around, man alive, that was impressive.
Yeah, Yuri has an interesting, he's keeping his hands low all the time, right? Like, his hands are always low. I want him versus Johnny Walker for the craziest striker. Him versus Walker would just be ridiculous. All offense, no defense. But yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah, him coming in and just what he did, like we were talking about. I picked Ozdemir. I thought it was gonna be a one-sided beatdown, quick knockout for Ozdemir. The way that, how do you say his name again?
Prochazka,
Yuri,
something like that.
The way he came in and just destroyed a top contender in the UFC, and the way he did it reminded me a lot of when Anderson came into the UFC, clowned around on Chris Levin and just starched him. It was very and Zone, you saying how Volkan had been knocking all these guys out as crazy knockout power. The clowning that he was doing, he was rolling with every punch. Like, he wasn't allowing anything to hit him really that clean. It was all glancing shots. He was rolling with them. So, I don't know. It was very impressive. I thought he was fighting cans over in Risen. He's going to come over here. He's going to be in for a rude awakening. But the way he came in, he's honestly, if Johnny Bones doesn't come around, I'm thinking the 4-way tournament for the title. Who do we have there? We were talking about it earlier.
We had
him versus
Blachowicz. We had Blachowicz, and then we had
Dominic Reyes,
Santos, Reyes, Blachowicz, and Yuri.
Yeah, and match those guys up however you want, but that would be a great 4-man tournament for the title.
Yeah, I agree. He did dodge a lot of the punches and use good head movement, but in the first round he did get peppered in the face a bunch of times, and he started to hold back on being cocky, but then he like rebuilt it back up. And then you saw in the second round, he really found the timing, and he just absolutely destroyed Oezdemir. I'd also like to personally see him match up against Nikita Krylov. I think that'd be a great matchup. Krylov just beat Johnny Walker, and I think that's a great stylistic matchup to put each guy up against, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then we had Paige Van Zandt. She looks like she's getting the boot. Dana told her it would be in her best interest to gauge free agency. So don't think we'll be seeing her in the UFC anytime soon. I'm betting she'll be in Bellator with her husband, making Instagram videos for Bellator.
Maybe she's in Hollywood next. Who knows? WWE.
Yeah. I'll be surprised if she even takes a fight contract, to be honest, a little bit. Like, she didn't even seem to really want to be there that much. I mean, you can really tell when in fighting, right? So maybe she takes a Bellator contract, but I should be surprised if she does, personally. But
yeah, she says she's going to come back greater than she did. I don't know how you come back better than how bad you just looked. We do have to give some credit to Rebus. She is the real deal. It sort of reminded me of, like, you know, Paige Van Zandt being a poor woman's Ronda Rousey when Nunez came in and just was taking over. Rebus she's legit. She's going to be in title contention, if not potentially a champ soon. But yeah, Paige Van Zandt, you know, she's done her tits up. Maybe she can get some lip injections. She can stick some stuff in her ass and keep doing her TikTok videos with her boyfriend. Good luck in Bellator and have a good career.
Get her out of here.
Get him out of here.
Oh, man. What about Jose Aldo's performance? Even though, well, actually, the ref is the main thing we got to talk about first here. Like, that was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was yelling at my TV. My parents' dog was scared of me for the rest of the night. Yeah, no, it was looking pretty bad there for a while.
It's bad when Bisping has to jump in and start yelling. Like, that's just, you know, it's way too late when the commentator is starting to feel bad, you know?
Yeah, and I personally absolutely love this sport and die to watch every week. And I was with you know, Willie here in the top left corner on the weekend watching the fights, and I left the room and I was disgusted and couldn't believe what I just saw. And we're yelling at the screen, "Stop the fight, stop the fight, stop the fight." Kind of reminds me of little Jerry Seinfeld in Seinfeld when they bring in that undefeated ringer from Brazil, and he just absolutely dominates little Jerry Seinfeld and Kramer at the same time. And yeah, it was over. It was way too much. Stop the fight. Give me the peanuts and Cracker Jacks and let me go home.
Took years off Aldo's career, I bet, with that one beatdown. He probably took 75 unnecessary punches. Basically undefended. He wasn't doing anything other than he had his hand up by his ear. Like, he's not doing anything. What are you thinking, ref? And you get a ref that does that with Aldo, and then you get another one that calls the fight immediately as Dominic Cruz gets dropped.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that ref was he was more worried about Jan's fingers than he was about fucking Jose Aldo's life.
Yep.
Like, he was he was so worried about Jan's fingers pointing out. He kept on saying, "Get your fingers down, get your fingers down." Then fucking 15 minutes later, the guy's brains are being beat out and he doesn't say anything. Like,
well, I think
he's yelling at him. He's yelling at him to do something or fight back, and the guy's almost dead. Like, what do you want him to do?
But wasn't the ref even saying, like, watch the strike to the back of the head? Which it's like, yeah, sure, but like, just end it. The guy's not defending himself. Like, strikes in the back of the head, that's inadvertent when you're in that position. Like, you don't have much surface area to go for. So, and just stop it. I don't know.
And you got to know your fighter, right, Kronz? Like, Jose Aldo is one of the most famous mixed martial artists of all time. You think he's going to tap out due to strikes? He's not going to do that. He's absolutely not going to do that. So how many does it take for you to end it?
He's dazed. He can't even think that much in that time, right? That position, he's vulnerable. That's the reason the ref's in the ring. You know, it seemed a little extreme.
And Leon Roberts is usually a decent ref. So it's not like some guy that we have no idea who he is. I just don't know what was going on. Like, was he on the no nonsense Keith Peterson butts and shots diet? Like, what the hell was going on? Like, it doesn't make
maybe
any
he had money on Aldo to win.
Yeah, maybe.
He also got a one.
Had the over.
Like the UFC was in charge for this. There is no athletic commission. They hired the refs and they hired the judges independently.
Oh.
So there's no commission here. This is all in the UFC. I wonder if they sat these refs down and were like, listen, we don't want another Dominic Cruz controversy where we don't want a fighter coming back and being like, I could have recovered. And that went too far. Like, I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but
no, but you're not wrong. Like, it may be. Like, why
That's a fact. Yeah, unsanctioned.
Cut the shots in half. Yeah. Let's do 35 extra blows. Like, why 70? Like, it's just crazy.
But that kind of goes to show why maybe athletic commissions exist, where if the UFC is kind of pushing these guys and saying like, listen, if you don't want to comply with what we're asking, see ya. We'll ship in a new ref next week.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep. You need that watchdog, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah,
what do you guys think about Rose's performance? She looked pretty good, eh?
Really good.
Yeah,
she got tagged a lot in the third round, and she went downhill pretty quick. I don't know if that was ring rust or what was going on. She's been away for a long time. The first 2 rounds, she looked sharp though.
Mm-hmm. My favorite. Sorry, my favorite part from that fight was from the second to third round. She's got Pat Beer in her corner, her boyfriend or husband or whatever it is, the rest of her corner in there. And she looks at him and goes, I'm the best, right? I'm the best. And reassured that, she knows inside. She's got some of the best skill in the UFC, like for the women's division, even in the men's. She's got a ton of skill, and she's reiterating out loud, I am the best, and I am going to go out in this third round. Even though she did get peppered, she still won the fight. She's legit, and it should be her and Wei Li later this year.
Yep, agreed.
Andrade, it was pretty interesting. She came out with ridiculous head movement, and it was working. That was what really changed the fight, or it changed it from the last one, right? Was that head movement. I thought Rose, I'm not exactly sure what happened in that third round. I have to go back and watch it, but maybe she kind of took her foot off the gas pedal a little bit, and it was just like, I won those first 2 rounds, and then started to get caught a little bit. I'd be worried in a 5-round fight, what would really happen there? Would Andrade, continue her momentum there and win the 4th and 5th round? Not really sure what would happen, but at the end of the day, like we said, she won 2 of the 3. She looked like the better fighter in general overall. So her and Wei Li is the next fight to make there.
So speaking of winning the first 2 rounds, maybe that's a good segue into the Holloway Volkanovski.
Yep.
I know we got a lot to dissect there, boys.
A little too much. That's the thing, right? Well, to go back, I mean, obviously, I think Matt Holloway won the first 2 rounds. The third round is really what's a little bit more questionable. I think it was 28-24 strikes for Holloway's favor in the third round, so he had more. But it seemed like Volkanovski had a little bit more of the effective striking, I would say. But so that was kind of close. It kind of goes either way. Then the 4th and 5th round, Volkanovski, controlled it with the grappling. He started to pressure more. He realized he was losing the fight, and he started to at least, try to win it back. So it's definitely, I wouldn't say it was a robbery, like some people are saying online. Certainly it was a close fight that probably should have gone Max's way. 2 knockdowns, 1 each in the first and second round should matter a lot, I think. But under the current scoring system, they're just 10-9. But yeah, jump in there. What do you guys think?
So here's something that really jumped out at me. Big John chimed in on that. He literally wrote the book on how to judge fights. And he specifically said, based on how the rules are, Holloway won the first 3 rounds decisively. Just based on how the rules are written. He knows them inside and out because he literally wrote the rule book. So I don't know. Again, this goes again back to the UFC bringing in their own people. Like, come on, bring in some legit judges. Like, if you're allowed to bring in anybody, why are you going back to these commission bums who score boxing matches? They can bring in anybody. They can bring in ex-UFC fighters who actually know what the fuck they're talking about,
Yeah, this is, to be honest, this is the Hooks In family cry for help right here. Anybody who's listening right now, it's time to fix this shit. It's not right. I actually when I was watching the fight, the third round at the end, I'm like, you know what? That's a Volkanovski round. I actually think he won the third round, and I do have to go back and watch it again because you can't judge it based on watching the 5 rounds in the regular time and actually having a couple of drinks at the same time. So I got to go back and rewatch that fight. At the time, I told Josh, I think Volkanovski won that third round. But this is seriously like a cry for help. Like, MMA needs to fix this shit. Dana White and everybody involved, like across MMA in the entire world, like, get this shit figured out. It's not fair. We've been talking on the podcast here for 5 episodes. Almost every episode, something comes up about judging. Something comes up about reffing. Why the fuck is this happening every single week? And why isn't there somebody actually doing something about it? It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed now. Add in 5 judges. Add in people that are qualified. Train people properly. There has to be something done, and it has to be done quick because this isn't right and it can't go on any longer.
What if it's just like an AI robot, like they're talking about in baseball, like just robot strike zone? Train some sort of algorithm robot. Hey, it's got the stat cast, right? It has all the significant strikes, time of control, takedowns, all that shit. It's pretty objective when you look at the stats. Compile that. Yeah. Throw it into a weighted
games already. Just find some way to take it out of that and apply it to the real situation.
Like, it's crazy, man. And then I don't know. I totally agree. Take this human emotional element out of it because there's 100% there's bias, right? There's who knows what was told to them before. Hey, if it comes down to a decision, give it to Volkanovski because he's the champion. Who knows if that was said, right? So yeah, there's got to be some sort of X factor, some sort of,
on the plus side, opened up Max for some pretty interesting matchups. I would love to see him against the loser of Zabit and Yair.
Yep.
That would be unreal for him. Whoever.
He's not going away anytime soon, that's for sure. I think this could actually work to his advantage. He's going to come back with a chip on his shoulder and have something to prove. So
yeah, and he said that he's a class act too. Like,
yeah,
I sent something in our group the other day. Like he's like in a loss, he's just as humble as he is in a win. And the guy's legit. He's really likable. He's one of the biggest superstars in the UFC. And despite maybe a decision loss that maybe shouldn't have gone that way, he's still, being positive about it. He's saying there's way more things in the world right now that are way worse than this, and he'll come back stronger. Like, that's just a legit person right there.
Yeah, and defending the critics saying that he lost. There was a bunch of reporters that were getting threats for how they were reporting the fight. He's like, yeah, there's more important things in the world. I'm fine. Still gonna have another fight. I'll be fine. I'll be back.
Yeah. I just wish my money was not on Bet365 and was on FanDuel, and I would have got a credit back. That's my only regret.
Yeah, exactly.
So, hey, maybe that'll work, and more people will deposit on that site now.
I'm going to deposit there for tomorrow night just to let everyone know.
Kudos to them. So.
Hey, we're talking about it, right? So
exactly.
It's working.
They strung a chord. So how much money did we all lose on the Usman Masvidal? I know Easy Lines had it, I think, right, in terms of their picks. But, me, myself, just being more of a recreational fan, hoping for a crazy knockout in the first, definitely took a gamble and lost. But what do you guys think about that, main fight in general?
Yeah. Go ahead, Z.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, in general, I kind of went the way, what everyone, I guess, would say is chalk, right? Kamaru Usman just controlled the fight, grappling, and really drew it out without much time to prepare. I think he just kind of went with the most simple game plan for football, is just run the ball. I think that's all he was doing. He wasn't taking very many risks, and just puts him up against the fence. Jorge's his defense and grappling is good, and he was able to break away a few of the times, actually kind of surprisingly, and he was able to start some exchange sometimes. But obviously it wasn't enough, and he wasn't able to kind of keep his distance for any, meaningful amount of time. And so Usman, basically dominated him for 5 rounds. But yeah, what were you saying, Zone?
Yeah, I was going to say before I talk about the main fight was just wanted to call out Martin Tybura quickly because he ruined my 3 parlay bet that I had that would have paid me almost $300. So thanks for trying to finish the fight, Tybura.
Had the back for almost 3 minutes.
Yeah, the back for 3 minutes in the third round. He decided to lay and pray.
Oh no!
So I was angry about that because that set up my night absolutely in the opposite direction that I wanted. So thanks again, buddy. But I did want to talk about Usman quickly. They both took the fight on 6 days' notice. Usman said after, I played it safe. That's not who I am. If I had a full fight camp, I would have shown more. And I agree with that. He knew if he just stood with Masvidal, he probably would have been knocked out. Masvidal did touch him up a bit on the feet, but it was just few and far between. Usman played it safe. He looked fantastic in the 25 minutes, even if it wasn't overly exciting. And he's the champ, and he's won the same amount as GSP, except GSP had way more title defenses. So you can't put yourself in that ballpark, buddy.
Yeah. I don't agree with either of them saying that fight would be any different if they had a full fight camp. If they're both lying to everybody, they've been training for each other since February or whenever the first title talks had started. So for them to say it's 6 days notice, I didn't really have a game plan. They had a game plan in place. That was already there. They thought they were going to be fighting each other before Burns jumped in. So I don't know. I think it would go the same way if they rematch. Maybe Masvidal would have a little bit better gas tank on him, but I don't know. That's Usman's game. I don't see why he would change it, especially against a dangerous striker. Who did he just fight before that?
Colby Covington, right? So that was a great strike, back and forth. And I think the same thing would happen with Burns, right? Once they do match up there, Burns, his jiu-jitsu is amazing, his grappling's great, and he's strong for that 170. Whereas, Masvidal's not really necessarily really super strong for 170, right? Like he's a decent sized guy. He's not small.
I was actually really surprised with how big he looked in there.
In comparison to Usman, right?
Yeah, I thought he was going to be way over.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in Masvidal's conditioning. I get it, 6 days, but come on, man, you're a professional athlete. In my opinion, 12 months of the year, 365, you got to be in tip-top shape. I don't know. I think he's got, the money kind of got to his head a bit. He knew he was in for a big payday, even if he lost. And I just didn't see the will and determination in Masvidal.
Who agrees with you 100%, Krons?
Well, yeah, our guest on last week,
John the Bull McDessie.
And you know what? He made great points there. I got to agree with him. And then here I am watching, and I'm like, how many million pay-per-view buys did it have? And it was a snooze fest.
1.3.
Total letdown. I don't know. It just, I get it. These guys get paid a lot, and they're there just to show, and they draw buys. But when the undercards are way more exciting and outperforming you as a headliner, I don't know. If I'm a UFC fighter, I would probably put a little more effort in.
Yeah, I agree. 3 quick things, just a couple honorable mentions. Davey Grant with an unbelievable knockout to start out the card.
With the broken jaw.
With the broken jaw.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yep.
Then did a 5-minute interview.
Yeah.
With his jaw. Yeah. That would have been people do that interview.
I think Anik asked more questions than he normally did just to test the chin.
Should have had a ventriloquist doll.
Oh no.
Another honorable mention, Makwan Amir Khan looked great. He's won 3 of his last 4. Fantastic. And lastly, just a special shout out to Peter Yan. He is that guy's a beast, man. Sterling is in trouble if they do that matchup.
That'll be a good
Yan
fight.
is incredible.
Yeah.
I think anybody's going to be in trouble there, man. That guy hits so hard. You
He's
can tell.
solid.
Aldo fought great, and Aldo won at least 2 rounds, I think. But maybe the second and third.
Yeah, and when he went to the Muay Thai stance is when he was most successful, and then he got away from it.
When he was kicking him, it was working, and he just stopped it for some reason. I think it's because, well, the word on the street or whatever is that, you know, he has some leg injury or some knee injury or something, right? So he can't really. That's the reason why he stopped doing it a few years ago, is because if he like one or two of them hit or land on them, guy good, and then he hurts himself basically by doing it.
Anderson Silva's himself,
something like that.
So if we're sorry, go ahead, Josh.
I think he was very close to winning that first round before he got taken down and got that rib shot that took him out. That was a very changing moment, but he could have been up 3-0 going into the fourth had that not happened. And the fact that he fought that long while clearly being injured from the first round on and doing so well was pretty impressive.
But did that come out? What was that rib shot? Because people are speculating, he broke a rib, and then they're like, no, you'd be in way more pain. Like, was it just a liver shot?
Yeah,
it almost looked like a liver shot that just like
I think so
him.
too. I think so too.
Yeah.
Liver,
kidney shot, whatever it is.
Yeah, because if you break a rib, no matter how tough you are, it's like you can't really move. Like it's like you're fucked. Like you know, he was moving too well for that thing.
He recovered. Second round, he looked like nothing happened. So
although I actually do think it was like a liver / wind, but then he did switch to the Muay Thai stance, which covers them. So then it made me think, was there actually some kind of
compensating for it?
Yeah,
True.
So I don't know. It's hard to say.
Maybe he was already injured coming in. Maybe he had bruised.
Could be.
Maybe.
He could have been tender or something. Yep. And that just aggravated it. So
something that also, sorry guys, just to jump back to Usman for a second. Everybody trashing Usman about being snoozman, and I'm one of them. Johnny Bones put out something interesting. He countered somebody with that, but everybody loved Couture, which was actually very interesting because Couture literally did the exact same thing that Usman did for his entire career, and everybody loved Couture.
I saw that too.
Very interesting.
I think it's a different time. I think back then, that style of fight was what the fans wanted. That brawler, grind it out kind of fight. It's different now. There's so many like elevated disciplines now. People want to see the knockouts and submissions and the stand up. I think that's kind of like, a bunch of other sports and the styles that go away, like NHL. There's no Broad Street bullies anymore. There's no, the big guy that's going to crush you in the middle of the ice. It's a quick man's game. It's a smaller guy. It's a, skill position game. I think it's kind of, trending towards that way in the UFC, in my opinion.
Yeah. It also, I feel it might have a lot to do with Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal constantly chirping him, and that's in the headlines all the time. And just people, if it was more of, back when Couture was fighting, it was more gentlemanly. Like, Ortiz and Liddell and him, they chirp back and forth, but it was never like, you're a boring fighter. It was more, I'm just going to kill you in the cage.
Yeah. Randy was like the face of, his division and really was a pioneer in a sense.
Yep.
Not to mention, he was well respected, interviews, out of the octagon, he carried himself really, really well. I don't see Usman winning any fans by, his interviews or his charisma.
No.
So I think there's that plays into it. Outside of the style entirely, just him as a person. I don't see anyone going out and buying his swag or rocking his gear.
And based on Colby Covington, he's not going to win any fans based on his hairline either. But yeah, so I think when we preview the next two cards here, Wednesday and Saturday, I think we could do that on Easy Lines, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll jump right into that. We've got this great interview. We hope you guys tune in and really just cheer on Cody tomorrow as he takes on Jimmy Rivera. And I think it's going to be a great matchup. So Yeah, without further ado, let's get into our highlight interview.
All right, next on the Hooks In MMA podcast, we have UFC fighter Cody Stamann. How's it going, Cody?
I'm doing really good. Pretty tired after a long, hard day of training, though.
Yeah, so where are you training at right now? Where were you at today?
Today I did two practices at Extreme Couture. That's pretty typical for a Monday. I go to Extreme, I go to the PI, and I go to 10 Planet, downtown and in Henderson.
Okay. Are you based out of Vegas right now?
Yep. I live in Las Vegas. Yeah, I moved here almost a year now. I've been here a year. I absolutely love it out here. Training's amazing.
Yeah, so you're from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Just wondering the comparison between there and Vegas. I mean, the regular person maybe talks about, the party life and, the type of city it is for that. But just, I mean more, like the heat and the type of living you do there as opposed to home.
The heat doesn't really bother me much. I grew up in Michigan. The weather there is terrible, 10 months out of the year. So, being here and waking up every day and having it be nice and sunny, you get a few bad days a year. The weather alone has been amazing. And then like the outdoors, the hiking, all the stuff that's really close to Las Vegas. Like me is really close to my house too. I really enjoy the outdoors here, as much as I did in Michigan. It's just you can enjoy them more because the weather's a lot more mild, In Michigan, it's kind of in Michigan, there's a lot of stuff I like to hunt and fish, but, there's a lot of stuff out here that I could probably get adapted to and hunt and fish out here. So, overall, Vegas has been amazing to me for sure.
Yeah, so we're about an hour south of Toronto, so we totally we understand, the weather portion compared to Michigan. So you
guys probably have the same weather.
Yeah, so we get some stuff off of Buffalo from the lake, and then we get some stuff off the other way. It's up by Windsor and stuff, so it can be pretty bad too. So I can relate to that. I was going to jump later in to talk about the hunting and the fishing stuff because I do that myself. But since you mentioned it, just curious, how often you get to go out? What do you hunt? What do you fish?
I used to get out a lot more. Now my trips are a little bit more condensed. I tend to, whenever I can go hunting, I usually have something set up, with friends back home where I have a really good spot and I'm, kind of guaranteed to shoot stuff. Normally I'm not quite as successful. I've been a lot more successful, but I haven't got to hunt and fish as much. For as far as fishing goes, I've always enjoyed river fishing. I like the spring and fall steelhead and salmon runs. That's kind of like my absolute favorite thing to fish in Michigan. And then as far as hunting, I grew up deer hunting. I deer hunted a lot, but I really, I've always been really passionate about duck and goose hunting. That's kind of like my favorite thing to hunt. Waterfowl.
Okay, well,
it's just great where you are.
Yeah. Just you mentioning that, we got a couple things in common then. So I grew up fishing for bass, walleye, and pike. But recently, in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've been taking up steelhead as well in the fall and in the spring. So really enjoying that as well. And then for hunting as well, I got a couple deer myself, but that's, out of a long time, I guess that's not that good of a success rate. But my favorite as well is for to hunt for duck. So can relate.
It's fun. It's just fun. It's relaxing, and when it's going good, it's going really good. So
and a lot of strategy.
I prefer waterfowl. Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to know. With every kind of hunting there is, you know what I mean? There's levels. I've been fortunate enough I've got some good friends that are really, really good hunters, and they've, taught me a lot. So I've gotten a lot better at it, even though I don't do it as much as I would like.
Awesome. So just checking your nickname. So you got Mr. Wonderful and Spartan. Is Mr. Wonderful from back home? And Spartan
Mr. Wonderful was actually it was a joke. Someone wrote it on a fight card as a joke. And it ended up sticking. I'm not sure how, so I just kind of had to run with it. And then the Spartan was actually something my mom gave me just because I come from I'm actually not from Grand Rapids. I'm from a little town just north of Grand Rapids called Sparta. And we were the Spartans growing up. My brother and sister both went to Michigan State, so they were Spartans. So it just makes sense that that would represent, you know, kind of where I'm from and be a Spartan. And, you know, plus, you know, I'm a huge fan of Greek mythology. So, you know, I've actually maybe my best history subject. So I've always really liked those stories and things that, you know, the stories about the Spartans and the way they lived. You know, I think we could learn something from that in today's society.
Yeah, so for sure. Yeah, we'll take that nickname then. We'll stick with that one. So you wrestled at Grand Valley State. You went there. Did you go there for 4 years?
No, I went to a community college. And Grand Valley State is just a club program, so
okay.
It's not even a real like a real wrestling program. You know, people always talk about it. You know, and it was something I did a little bit here and there, but when I really committed to MMA, I didn't do anything. I did 2 years at community college, and then I did 2 years at Grand Valley. So saved a little bit of money. I'm still paying that off, but I'm almost done. You know, it's expensive to go to school.
I still got a ways to go myself. So
yeah, I'm better off. I think my brother and sister are like 80 grand in debt. So I mean, they're a lot smarter than I am, but I mean, I might be smarter because I'm just about debt free.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so you did start boxing in high school, though, I believe.
Yep.
And mom encouraged you to get into MMA. Why was that?
Well, you know, I've always been kind of a, you know, an aggressive kid, a competitive kid. And, you know, so if I had an issue with somebody, I normally, you know, took it up in a physical manner. So I've never gotten any real trouble, but, you know, I kind of got a reputation of being a guy that, you know, that was kind of, you know, bad news if you got on my bad side. And I think my mom just knew. She just knew, you know, she started watching MMA. They started coming on TV, and we'd watch it. We'd all watch it, and she'd just kind of like look at me like, you could do this. And I was like, you know, I don't know.
She wasn't wrong.
Yeah, no, she wasn't. She knew right away. And then, you know, I started doing it, and God, I fell in love with it. Yeah, I mean, and I had, you know, like I said, I had a ton of years of wrestling experience, ton of boxing experience, and I've always been a pretty good athlete and real competitive. So, you know, when everything came together, like MMA just consumed my life, you know, and I was kind of on pace to take over the family business, which is a restoration business. And, you know, I worked for my parents for, you know, 20 years. I worked since I was probably 7, 8 years old in this company. But, you know, when I started really actually getting good at MMA, they were like, dude, you gotta make a commitment to do this. I moved across the state. I moved to Detroit, and I started training with a guy named Darren Cruikshank, who was really a stud in the UFC as well, and risen, and, you know, just kind of followed in his footsteps. And, you know, eventually, you know, I kept winning fights, and there was a few times when I was like, all right, I'm gonna hang it up. I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm gonna go, you know, work for the family. And then another opportunity would come up, and I'd win another fight. And it wasn't until probably, you know, my last few fights with the UFC that I really, when I moved to Vegas, when I was absolutely done, you know, I stopped doing any kind of like construction work. Even at the beginning in the UFC, I was doing a little bit here and there when I could to help out the family. And now, you know, now that I'm in Vegas, it's really, really hard for me to do anything, which, you know, is hard for me because, you know, it's kind of like my responsibility. But I mean, everybody in my family understands that, you know, I have a small window to make as much money as I can, and, you know, then I can decide what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Support system's huge. I mean, if you don't have that first, then maybe you would have ended up going back. I don't know, but it seemed like, you know, you were meant to be based on winning and, you know, getting out to Vegas, I think. And then now you're been really successful, and it's hard to maybe commit back now. You know, later on in your life, maybe you could do that. That's maybe a choice for another day. Yeah, you mentioned Darren Cruikshank. I went to a card, I don't know, half an hour away from here a few years back, and I think he was either cornering or maybe just supporting. Do you know Mike Hernandez?
Yeah, Mike Hernandez. Yep.
Yeah,
another guy I trained with when I was back in Michigan. Tough dude.
Yeah, very tough. So he fought at that card. It was in Burlington here, about half an hour from Toronto. So I actually met Darren and got a picture with him. Great guy. And yeah, he was really, really talented. Probably still is. I don't know, but I know he's not in the UFC. He was over in Risen. So is he still fighting or?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if he's got anything lined up right now. Everything's kind of all screwed because of COVID. But yeah, I mean, he's probably still to this day probably one of the best guys I've ever seen.
Yeah, he was really good.
When he really puts it together, he's insane. He's insanely good. It's scary. Darren's got a lot of other hobbies besides fighting. You know what I mean? He's like a Chad Mendes. He's so naturally gifted. He doesn't have to work as hard as everybody else. He's got a lot of other stuff he likes to do. He shoots guns and all this other crazy stuff. So yeah, I mean, he's living a good life though. I'm happy for him. Yeah,
and you mentioned Mendes too. He does some hunting stuff as well, right? He does a bit of guiding, doesn't he?
Guiding, yeah. I think that's kind of his full-time thing now. He's got a whole guide service. I'd really like to do a hunt with him. Honestly, it'd be a privilege. I know he's a serious outdoorsman. He's really, really good at pretty much everything. He's a lot better outdoorsman than I could ever dream of being.
Seems like a guy that could probably set you up if you asked. So
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, you should. 19-1 amateur record. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yep. 19-1 was an amateur.
My question is, I mean, that's unbelievably successful. When you were 10-1 or something, why didn't you decide to move forward professionally? I'm just curious on what goes into making that decision.
I wanted the experience. I kind of just didn't feel like I was, a lot of times I would get guys out of there so fast, it wasn't even really a fight. Just the level in Michigan wasn't really there. I mean, a lot of those fights were a minute and a half. They didn't last long. So I never really it wasn't until like my last few fights as an amateur that I really got like the in-cage experience where I really had to fight. I mean, I really had to fight. And honestly, losing was probably the best thing that ever happened to me as an amateur.
And I did sort of interrupt. I didn't actually check where in that 19-1 did you lose then?
It was my second to last fight. I was telling everyone I was going to go pro. And then I was fighting this guy who wasn't nearly as good as I was. I didn't think. And I just got careless. I took him. I had him in a guillotine, and I could hear him gurgling. I knew I was going to finish him, and I let him go. And I took him down, and I got armbarred. And he actually pretty much shattered my elbow. But then I fought his coach like a couple months later and beat the hell out of him. So after that, I was like, okay, there's really nothing else for me to do here. But I wanted the experience. I feel like a lot of guys, a lot of really talented guys, they don't get that in-cage experience, and they have they're huge prospects, and they come out and they get dropped or they get something happens to them. They eat shots. They just don't look good in their first few fights. And for me, I'm a 40+ fight veteran, so I know how to win in there. When you put me in the cage, like I will find a way to beat pretty much anyone. I mean, really, realistically, as a professional, the only person that's ever beat me was Aljamain Sterling, and it was like his 11th fight in the UFC, and it was like my third. So I mean, I moved up really, really probably too fast. I was just expecting to kind of steamroll everyone all the way to the top. And these guys at the top, you can't make mistakes. You really, I mean, you need to be sharp, and you need to train with guys that are sharp. You know what I mean? So that way you figure it out. And that's kind of why I moved to Las Vegas.
Yeah, and I'm not a math major, but I'm pretty sure you're 38-3 as a fighter, amateur and pro. So I mean, yeah, you know how to win in there for sure. 5-1-1 in the UFC. I guess you mentioned your only loss was against Sterling, who's the number one contender at bantamweight. Who do you want next? I know you talked a little bit about the last fight was at featherweight, correct? But you're a bantamweight, I think.
Yeah, I'm a bantamweight. I'm kind of, there's a few guys that are, I think good potential fights for me, but I think the guy that needs a fight hasn't fought in a while, and it makes sense because he's ranked a little bit higher than me, and that's Jimmy Rivera. And I like it because he's fought everybody. He's got the experience. He fights. You know what I mean? He's a guy that scraps. I don't want any more boring fights. You know what I mean? I want exciting fights. I want fans to want to see me fight. Because as much as this is about winning and looking good, it's a popularity contest, and you need to look good in the cage. It needs to be flashy. And stylistically, I think, I'll definitely give Jimmy a lot of problems, kind of like the same way I gave Kelleher problems. It's just, I'm really good at fighting guys on the outside, and especially guys that like to plant their feet and throw. I like fighting those kind of guys because I don't take a lot of damage in fights. I'm never going to be known as a guy that stands in the pocket and, kind of tries to figure stuff out. I don't see the point. You know what I mean? Like if I can piece you apart for 15 minutes and take no damage, I mean, that's what I'm going to do, because that's, my paycheck is just keeps going up, you know what I mean? Yep. As I keep winning. So, I'm not saying I like to fight safe, but I fight smart. You know what I mean? I know how to beat guys, and I do exactly what I need to do to beat them. And, I think Jimmy's going to be the next guy to get the short end of that stick.
Yeah, I'd love to see that fight. It's a great stylistic fight. You know what? You remind me of a buddy of mine. I don't know if you've ever trained with him, Josh Hill, but very, he's 19-3. He's in Bellator, but he fights similar to you, where very, very smart and doesn't take a lot of damage. He's been finished once and two other decisions. Just a really, really smart fighter. You remind me.
Was he on the Ultimate Fighter?
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen him fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
So
pretty tough.
yeah, I just mean in terms of like being smart and not taking a lot of damage, like very similar and similar records.
GSP.
Yeah.
GSP is a good example. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
GSP, he was making millions. I'm looking at him. That's why I thought of it.
Yeah.
He's making millions of dollars, and everyone booed him. And same thing with Mayweather. Everybody hated Floyd Mayweather because I'm like, dude, the game is literally to hit and not get hit. That is the game.
That's an art. That's an art. Like,
yeah, there's a like it takes a lot of skill to be good defensively in fighting. I mean, most guys have pretty good offense. Not many guys have good defense, and I'd like to think that I probably have the best defense in the bantamweight division. I mean, I make my opponents miss on like 75% of their shots.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Shots to the head, I think I make a miss at like a 95% clip, which is, you know what I mean? Like you throw 95 punches at me, you throw 100 punches, 5 of them are going to land. I don't see him. I'd like to leave with a sharp mind. I don't want to be one of those guys that's talking on the side of my mouth and this is all over.
No, I was just going to say, talking about life after fighting. I mean, what would you want more? You want to be a Dan Hooker from last weekend, or do you want to be Cody Stamann from 95% miss rate, right?
Yep. Yeah, I like where I'm at.
Just, throwing a couple fights out to you. I think I sent it to you before. You answered the bantamweight fight. So I was going to throw out 3 names. Who would you want, and who do you think you match up good against? The bantamweight was Corey Sandhagen, Jimmy Rivera, and John Dodson. I think you answered that one. You picked Jimmy Rivera. I want to see that fight too. If it happened to be at featherweight, if it was like short notice and you couldn't cut that quick weight, Ryan Hall, I throw out his name just based on his style. Cub Swanson or Sadiq Youssef, who's on a bit of a win streak. Oof. Those are 3 kind of different type of guys. Who would you want to fight out of those 3?
I guess if I had to pick one, it'd be Cub Swanson, just because I've grown up watching him. You know what I mean? And just to share the cage with those guys, the guys that I've looked up to for 10 plus years, is crazy. I actually had a dream that I fought Jose Aldo like 3 nights ago, and I woke up and I told someone about it. I told one of my coaches about it, and I was like, I had a dream I fought Jose Aldo, and like, you do realize that that's probably going to happen, right? Like,
it's actually pretty possible.
It's very possible.
What if he loses? If he loses against Jan, why couldn't you fight him next? Or even if he wins?
I mean, who knows? Who knows what happens? You know what I mean? I get the Riviera fight, and who like that puts me up. That's pretty much one more fight, and I'm in the top 5.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, things, and in MMA, things move fast. You know what I mean? Like you never know like where guys are going to go. The rankings change consistently. One doesn't always fight 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes 1 fights 10 and 2 fights 5, depending on availability and hype and all this stuff. So, like I said, I'm on this crazy ride, and there's like literally like 4 or 5 UFC champions in the top 15 at bantamweight, and I'm number 10. You know what I mean? Like Dominic Cruz, like who's considered like one of the best of all times, is ranked 12th. You know what I mean? Like beneath me, like sometimes I think about all of this stuff, and I think about like where I started and where I am now. I'm just like, well, I can't believe this is like my life. I can't. And granted, I've worked my ass off, and I've sacrificed, 10 years of my life to be good at the sport, but it's also surreal that it's really, really like the things I really like dreamt up when I was a kid with no clue what the hell is going to happen. Like if they're actually coming true. So, I want to be in those big fights. I want to fight the guys that I want to fight, Frankie Edgar. I want to fight Jose Aldo. I want to fight all those guys, all those legends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cub Swanson, anybody. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of guys at 45 or 35 that I would say no to, honestly. You know what I mean? If I'm getting paid, and I have time to prepare, even if I don't, you know what I mean? If I'm in good shape, it's not a fear thing. I like how, UFC fans are always talking about like this guy's scared of this and this guy's scared of that. I'm like, you guys, we fight people in a cage, while millions of people are watching. Like these are like UFC fighters aren't exactly the most fearful men. Like we're not fearful. It's just, it doesn't make sense, financially. And I think fighting any of those legendary guys, I think does nothing but, make your stock rise.
Yep. Very simply put, I was talking with Frank Trigg last week, and he basically said, once the fight starts, all the training, everything's out the window. Obviously, you're going to remember everything in your head, but the door's shut in the cage, and it's just you and the other guy, right? And it's go time. Like you can be put to sleep in 4 seconds or whatever. You could do the same, or you could grind it out for 15 or 25 minutes. But the door's shut, and that is it. It's go time.
Yeah.
Last segment here is called Between Rounds. So I'm going to ask you a question that's either going to be one answer or the other. So 60 seconds. Are we ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Steak or seafood?
Steak.
How do you like the steak cooked?
Blue rare. Bleed
Nice.
Alive. I want it to move.
Nice. Fighting in Vegas or in Michigan?
Vegas.
Rock, country, or other for type of music?
Rock, country.
Michigan, California, or Vegas as a place to visit?
Vegas.
Training or fighting?
Ooh, fighting.
Trolling or casting for fishing?
Casting.
Crankbaits, live bait, or soft plastics?
Live bait.
Grappling or striking?
Striking.
Knockout or submission?
Knockout.
Who wins, Usman or Burns?
Ooh, man, Usman.
Volkanovski or Holloway 2?
Volkanovski.
Jan or Aldo?
Aldo.
Stamann or the winner of Aldo Jan?
Stamann.
And in the 145 division, Stamann or the winner of Volkanovski, Holloway 2?
Ooh, it's a tall task. I got to bet on myself, so I'd say myself, but I don't want to fight that big, scary dude.
With a 39-3 amateur and pro record, I think you'd hold your own. Any shout-outs or sponsors just to finish off?
Nope. No. I appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward. I mean, hopefully we can get this deal done soon, and I'll be fighting Jimmy soon.
We're hoping that as well.
I'm itching to get back at it.
Yeah, well, we hope that gets all figured out. You can get on a card soon against Jimmy Rivera. Love to see it. That'll move you into the top 5, and then who knows what Cody Stamann could do from there. Again, condolences on everything. Our MMA family across Canada and I'm sure across the entire world saw your story within a week. You're able to, I don't even know how you fought through that. A great win and in honor of your brother. Thank you so much for your time, Cody. And this is Hooks In MMA.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that was a great interview with Cody Spartan Stamann. Again, fighting Jimmy Rivera on tomorrow night's UFC on ESPN on Fight Island. So now get your popcorn ready, guys. Get your deposits in on Bet365, or I guess FanDuel is giving credits back. Shout out to them for doing that. But even if you're in the daily fantasy, pay attention to some of these picks because these could be potential money winners. So to start us off, we've got Ben Easyline Zeman.
Yeah, thanks, Kron. So first up, we'll be talking about tomorrow's fights, UFC Fight Island, Cater versus Ige. We have, this is the featherweight division. Cater's a heavy favorite at -334. Ige at +250. This is an interesting top 10 matchup in one of the UFC's most competitive divisions. Cater's coming off a TKO finish at Jeremy Stevens in the second round just 2.5 months ago. He lost a decision to Zabit previous to that. Ige's coming off a split decision win over Barbosa, where a lot of people said he lost it, but still a close fight that could have gone either way. Also had a split decision win over Bektik previous to that. Personally, I'm going to, in general, I'm going with Calvin Cater in this one. I believe his length, reach, and, his super high-level boxing skills are going to eat away at Dan Ige. Ige's definitely a very tough guy, has cardio for days. He's been knocked down before by multiple different people and continues getting back up and fighting. So, I think that's going to be somewhat that happens here. Cater's going to outstrike him, going to knock him down several times first, second, third round. Ige's grappling, I think, is better, but I don't really see him having the power to really be able to control Cater consistently in this division. So, Calvin moneyline and some parlays looks good. I really, really like the over in this one. Over 2.5 -150. Over 3.5 +100 really looks good to me as well. Cater by decision +260 I'm looking at as well. So a lot of things in play there, but I do believe he can potentially finish in the third, fourth, or fifth round. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, Ige's he's a great fighter. Do I think he's top 5 worthy? No, and I don't think he's gonna get there. Cater's a better fighter. Ige's never been finished out of 16 fights. He's 14-2, both losses by decision. So I'm actually just not even for a value bet. I'm picking Cater by decision. I think it goes all 5 rounds. I think Ige puts up a valiant effort and loses 48-47 or 49-46. Cater's the better fighter, and he deserves a top 5 fight after that.
Yeah, no, sounds good to me. Anything else to add there, boys, Josh or Krons?
I think 2 tough guys. I think it could go decision as well. So if you bettors out there are liking to kind of stay away from winners and stick into the round betting, my money's going on the over, personally.
Yeah, I think that's the main play here from Easy Lines is that over 2.5. Go ahead and parlay that with some other things we're going to talk about later, and also the over 3.5 +100 looks good to me.
Really good.
Next, yeah, and like you said, decision +260 Cater. I mean, that's the value play for this particular fight. But again, go ahead. I'm putting a unit. I'm putting a unit or two on that at least as well, even though it's kind of a higher payoff. Next one we got coming up here is our boy Cody Stamann. He's the underdog going against Jimmy Rivera. Rivera is 22-4, -135. Stamann's +110. Rivera has lost, I think it's 3 of his last 4 actually, but all of these losses have come against absolute killers. And Peter Yan, who we just saw, last weekend against Aldo, Aljamain Sterling, Marlon Moraes. So you can't really fault him for these fights too much, But his most recent fight was June 2019, where he had lost that decision to Peter Yan. Cody had a very recent fight, on the other hand. He just won a month ago against Brian Kelleher, and Cody's only loss in the UFC is against Aljamain Sterling as well. For me personally, I do think this is a huge step in competition for Cody, but it's going to be a test that he does pass. I like him as an underdog at +110, especially him by decision. +190 looks great to me. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, very excited for this fight. Extremely happy that, when we talked to Cody in his interview, he kind of hinted that he wasn't able to officially say that this fight was confirmed, but finally happy that it came to fruition. This is a battle of number 8 against number 9, and whoever wins this is going to get, somebody around the top 5, somebody like Pedro Munoz, somebody like Rob Font, that could propel them into number one contender status. Huge fight. I have to lean towards Stamann. Rivera, he has, out of his 22 wins, he has 16 decision wins. That's an incredible amount of fights that go the distance. I know that the money is it's saying that it's going to go over and likely to be a decision. So I'll easily just confirm that I think that will. I do, however, think that Stamann is going to win this fight. I think that what Jimmy Rivera is good at, Stamann defensively is even better at. And he talked about that on the interview too. How good are you defensively as a mixed martial artist? He barely gets hit. And I don't think Rivera is going to be able to touch him like he has some other fights. Based on Stamann's movement with his feet and with his head, I think Stamann beats Rivera at his own game and wins a decision.
Yeah, I completely agree with that decision. Stamann beating Rivera at his own game. It's going to be a tough matchup, though. Rivera's been in there with a lot of good guys. He's been in there with the top three right now. So he's got the edge in the competition that he's fought and the know-how with that. But Stamann's young. He's hungry. He's got less mileage on him, or it seems that way anyways. But yeah, both of them are decision fighters. Neither one of them are prolific finishers.
Yeah, I agree. Rivera's resume is impressive, right? He had all those years in the Bellator. I think he started there in 2009. But I think Stamann's got the edge in wrestling. To your point, Zone, I think he's got better defense. I see this first round being a little bit slower, kind of finding their range, feeling each other out. And then it's going to be a banger round 2, round 3. But I'm giving, unanimous decision to Cody. And that's some great odds, almost getting 3-1 odds, him via decision.
Okay, great. Well, next up, we'll talk about it's another main card fight here. We have Tim Elliott at -125 versus Ryan Benoit +100. A little bit more contested fight. Tim Elliott is a veteran of the UFC. He's 15-11, so the best record, but I think probably 70% of those fights have been in the UFC. Lost his last 3, seemingly at a slide at age 33, but Ryan Benoit is 30, not much younger, has only had 1 fight in the past 3 years as well, and it was a split decision loss to some guy I've never heard of, basically. Elliott comes out firing most of the time. He was really jawing at the weigh-ins I saw today. He's revving to go. And Ryan, he's 4 of his last 7 fights have ended in a finish. I really lean on Elliott with this fight, just with his experience and the competition he's faced before. But I'm also really looking at this fight to not go the distance at +110. I think someone gets finished here.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Elliott. He's only won 1 of his last 5 fights. He is on a skid, but he's extremely exciting. And the UFC on their second Fight Island card has him as the co-main event. That's got to tell you something. Like, Stamann and Rivera right now are listed below Tim Elliott when they're going to fight tomorrow night. That tells me something. That tells me that he puts on a show. He either finishes or he gets finished. I really like a juicy under 1.5 rounds at +240 for this fight. I think Elliott chokes him out, rear naked or guillotine. He always pushes forward quick. The last fight we talked about this, Brandon Royval came in out of nowhere, and Tim Elliott pushed the pace and just didn't finish him early enough. Royval ended up getting the finish, saying it wasn't a good performance, and then Dana saw that and gave him a $50K performance bonus. Tim Elliott puts on good fights whether he wins or loses. Based on his record, you can tell that. I'm just going to go with Elliott for a finish and total rounds under 1.5 as a value bet +240.
Nice. Yeah, I know. I'd really like that as well. In terms of the value bet, I mean, Tim Elliott, I'm looking at it right now, round 2 plus 1100. That's looking juicy. And yeah, that plus 240 under 1.5. I didn't see that before. Didn't consider it. Yeah, I'm likely jumping on that now as well. Yeah, what about you, Kranz or Josh? Anything to add there for this one?
I mean, it's one of those ones you look at Elliott's record and you might think, oh, 15-11, like what's he doing being co-headline? But you look at the guys he's fought and there's some pretty big names on there. Demetrius Johnson, he's fought Benavidez, Davison. Like these aren't, just no-name guys. So sure, he's got a lot of losses there, but to Zone's point, he's exciting. I think he's going to come out with some fire, and I think he walks away with the win.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting fight. I mean, it's kind of underperformed a lot lately, but like you said, it's been exciting. Really, I don't know a ton about him other than that he came in a long time ago on short notice from Titan FC to fight Demetrius Johnson and did actually pretty well and surprised a lot of people. Looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting fight.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one as well. Okay, so what about in terms of, I mean, that's kind of it for me on that card. Zone or anyone else, do you have any other value bets or anything else you want to add on there for tomorrow night's card?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about a couple quick, and I'll just bring that up here. One sec. If someone wants to transition quick while I bring that up, my computer just died actually.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of jump in there super quickly. Yeah, no, I was actually looking at the Molly McCann and Talia Santos fight as well, which is on the main event. I didn't get to do thorough enough research on it, but on the surface level, I was looking at it, and Talia plus 110, I think actually looks pretty good. Molly McCann hasn't necessarily gone against the toughest competition either. And I believe she's kind of been not as active as of lately either, same as her. So I really kind of like the under. Actually, Molly has fought 3 times in 2019, but since October, she hasn't really fought anyone. So, yeah, I know. I think that one, Talia, at plus 110 is a nice underdog.
I actually like Santos as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a couple other ones. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, extremely impressive guy. 10 fights, 10 finishes. He missed weight, I think. But he's fighting a guy that I really don't see being in the same ballpark as him. 2 other ones. So Jack Shore, a Welshman. Guy's absolutely incredible and extremely underrated. He was 11-0 as an amateur, and he's finished 11 of his 12 professional fights, and he's undefeated. Like he's 23-0 as a MMA fighter, amateur and pro. He kicks off the card tomorrow night. I expect him to pull off a finish. I really do. This guy's really impressive. And lastly, Diana Belbita. She's Romanian, but she lives in Stony Creek. Shout out to the Creek. She's a slight favorite, and I expect her to win a 3-round decision tomorrow. And she's not too bad looking either.
Hey, that always helps as well, right? So
lock it in. I'm hearing Shore, Abdul Razak, and Belbita parlay for 2.275 odds. 3 heavy favorites, but when you combine them, looks to be decent value, boys.
Yeah, and if you do that on FanDuel, you're going to get an exact return no matter what.
Yep. Bad beat returns all day.
Yeah, you're a winner no matter what.
Yeah. And I'll double down on Z-Ball Santos pick. I'm looking at the tail of the tape here. She's got the reach advantage. She's slightly taller. Record slightly better. Yeah. Pure stats-wise, I think Santos has the edge, and it's kind of nice to get that extra juice, right? Her being the slight underdog. So if you bettors out there like that, I'm going to roll with Santos as well.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. So jumping into the very next card here, we got this Saturday night, UFC Fight Island again. Davison Figueiredo, or however you say that.
It's pretty good.
I
Really
honestly,
good.
I rewatched his fight with Benavidez today, and I honestly kept on going back again and back again in the YouTube to like hear how the announcer said it, and I still can't get it right. So,
Really good, man.
it's the rematch here from a couple months ago. Davison's minus 210, Benavidez plus 175. Davison won the last fight by TKO in the second round. But he had missed the 125 limit for the championship fight by 2.5 pounds, so was not eligible to win the title at that time. So the rematch has come around again this time. I do believe it's going to go Davison's way again. Benavidez certainly, was way faster, and Davison seemed to be getting a little tired in round 2. But Joseph's blitzing style was really getting him caught early, and I think it's going to happen again if he, takes that approach and becomes super aggressive. Davison was taking Benavidez's best shots, and it didn't really seem to affect him like too badly. His cardio seemed to be getting drained, but he was just being active. I'm thinking this time around he has a better camp. He has a good weight cut this time around, and it's going to be fresh in there. The odds are not out in terms of the props yet, but I'm leaning on the over in this fight. I think a lot of people are going to be getting on the under, like the public's going to be betting the under too much. 125 fight, they usually don't knock each other out that much. I think they're both going to take a little bit of a more conservative style this time. They know what the other one's going to be doing. Whatever it is, over 1.5 certainly. But over 2.5, if it's even money or even minus 120, 130, I think that's good as well. But yeah, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I really hope this fight happens. And Saturday, they talked about COVID-19 and hitting Figueiredo, potentially Alexander Pantoja was going to come in and fight instead. If he happens to do so, his only loss in his last 5 is against Davison Figueiredo. He has 3 out of his 4 wins by finish. Exciting young 125 prospect. If it does go, though, I mean, Figueiredo is the better fighter. Is he going to come in and is he going to make weight? That's another thing. We've been talking about that for a couple months with him. He's the better fighter. He hits way harder. Expect him to win in terms of money line 100%. But I can't talk about the rounds, I guess, because I haven't really seen anything yet. No prop bets, but I would expect it to go over 2.5 rounds. But I have Figueiredo in this one.
Yeah, we'll see what these tests come back with. Obviously, got a bit of a ways to go there, but I think that's a good insight to bring up, is him missing weight back in February. Obviously can't win a title even though he won the fight. I think that plays into the Saturday's match if it does happen. I think that might be a motivating factor for him. He might be, regretting when was that, about 6 months ago almost now. And I think that might give him a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. So I'm going to roll with Davison as well. And just hope we even have a fight to discuss next week's episode.
Yeah, hopefully he can keep those headbutts to himself this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. That's it, right? Because that's the only reason why Benavidez kind of got TKO'd there, was because that he got that the heads collided. Blood started pouring from his forehead. He didn't know why it was. He knew he didn't get really good. He didn't know what happened, so he kept on touching it. He was touching it, and getting distracted by the blood. He put his hand down, and Davison just caught him real hard with a straight when he was basically not really paying attention to the fight completely. So I don't think that's going to happen again. But if he does do that blitzing style, who knows? But I don't know. I don't think it's going to, again, the over. I think the main thing's the over in that fight. And Davidson, you can go ahead and parlay with a few of our next picks here. Next up, we'll jump into the next fight. We got Jack Hermansson, underdog plus 100 versus Kelvin Gastelum minus 125. Jack lost his most recent fight by TKO to Jared Cannonier back in September last year. But before that, he was on a 4-fight winning streak, including a win over Jacare Souza. Kelvin has lost his last 2 in a row, most recently to Till. Before that, he did have the fight of the year candidate with Israel, crazy back and forth interim belt fight. So, Kelvin had a lot of big moments in that fight. The Till fight, was, they were both really tentative, especially Till, who had recently been knocked out by Jorge Masvidal. So he even was quoted as saying he was gonna maybe he was thinking about faking an injury or something before he walked out and stuff. So I think he was a little tentative in that fight. Neither Kelvin or Till got a lot off, but nevertheless, it went Till's way. I don't see that happening here, though. Jack is going to come out looking to use his reach, his kicking and his striking with Kelvin, I believe. But I'm still going to go with Kelvin on this fight, although it is a close one.
Yeah, I'm a Kelvin Gastelum fan for this fight. Hermansson's got a lot of really exciting fights recently. And he can put people away. I just think Gastelum's on another level. Hermansson for me is like around a top 10 guy, and Gastelum for me is within a top 5 guy. Gastelum's the better fighter. I actually think he puts him away. I think, I guess you would go under the 2.5 rounds if we were going rounds, but I would go Gastelum by finish, and at the very least, Gastelum minus 125, since we don't know the odds right now. By money line. He's the better fighter, and I think he wins.
Yeah, I think people are forgetting how good he actually is. Like, they see that he's coming off of 2 losses. He got finished by Israel, but he also almost, he could have finished Israel at a couple of moments there. And then, I don't know, anybody after they take that kind of damage in a fight, I feel like they're going to be tentative in their next fight coming back. There's not a lot of guys that rebound. And how much time did he take off between Stylebender and Till? Do any of you guys know?
Yeah, it was like 7 months, but he actually didn't get finished by Israel. It was a decision, but it was about 7 months between Israel and Till.
He got knocked down a lot. He was severely concussed to take a fight on 7 months after that. He's still probably dealing with, at that point, he would have still been dealing with post-concussion symptoms probably. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's going to come out and he's going to make a statement.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's going to be an action-packed fight for sure. That under sounds decent, though. Yeah, Kronz, sorry, jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about it, right? Strength of schedule, strength of opponents. And I think Gastelum, there's no question. He's fought the who's who. Even looking at some of these legends he's fought in the past, right? Bisping, Belfort, Johnny Hendricks, Nate Marquardt, Tyron Woodley, Ellenberger,
unbelievable.
He's fought the marquee names, and I think he's going to bring that IQ and experience, and that's going to be his edge. So I like it at just a slight favorite, money line.
Me too.
And his speed, he's so fast.
So fast.
His 1-2 is so fast, lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing you got to worry about with Jack is that reach is ridiculous as well. He has the light heavyweight. He has a 77.5-inch reach. Gastelum does have a decent reach for a middleweight as well, but he's short, right? He at least for a middleweight. So that's the only thing that kind of concerns me. But yeah, Kelvin, like we said before, he's fought better guys. I think his technique's going to be better.
Yeah, this won't be his first time training for a guy with a huge reach either.
Yeah,
right.
Israel,
right?
Yeah.
And Till. So yeah, I know you're absolutely right. Won't be the first time. And the thing is, I think Till fucks up Hermansson. I think Israel fucks up Hermansson, right? So I think Kelvin will get this fight. I mean, those were kind of the 2 main ones I was looking at so far, boys. Zone, do you have any other value bets or anything else you want to add on there?
Yeah, just 2 others. Mark Jacasey is a guy that's really been coming on lately. Really exciting guy. I know his last 2 wins are by decision, but this guy's, his last 2 wins have been impressive. Lando Venado was one of them. And I think, Rafael that he's fighting, I think he's just on another level. They gave him this fight for him to get a 3-fight win streak so they can give him someone better. They're kind of building him up a little bit. JKC I have by money line, which is, I think it's minus 170 if I'm not mistaken. Minus
right.
170. I mean, that's not incredible money, but I think it's a safe thing to parlay with something else. And lastly, I just wanted to nominate Malcolm Gordon here. So fellow Canadian, he's 12-3. He's finished his last 4 fights. And he was supposed to fight Alexander Doskolchuk, which I find weird because he was a big underdog in that. And then Doskolchuk had to pull out, and they replaced him with Amir Albazi, and he's still an underdog. So for me, it's like, why didn't they place Albazi against Doskolchuk in the first place if they would probably match up better odds wise? Like, why are you giving him a short notice fight against someone that was off the roster and he's also going to be an underdog? I find that kind of weird as looking at like betting. But anyways, I really hope he wins. Hopefully he can come on the podcast in a few weeks after he wins and talk a little bit about it. But this guy's really exciting, 12-3. He can finish you anywhere, and he's worked on his stand-up. Look for him to potentially, as a value pick, win as an underdog on Saturday.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think I'm also pretty good on my end. Kronz or Josh, anything else you want to add on there?
Nothing. Covered it pretty well, boys.
Yep. No, I think that's a great double event, easy line prediction set. So best of luck to all our fans out there. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Cheer on our boy Cody, Spartan, Stamann tomorrow night. We've all got money for him. We're rooting for you, Cody. Bring it home back to Michigan. And we look forward to catching up with you guys next week on episode 6. And hope you enjoy these 2 events this week.
Yeah, and go Diana Belbita and Malcolm Gordon. Good luck to those folks too.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, yeah.